got one more topic. I don't know why I'm rubbing my hands.
We about to say something else about Cash
Some
Money.
more New Orleans stuff.
Yeah, maybe I'm in my New Orleans vibe right now. I'm rubbing my hands together like Birdman. But I do have someone from that area to talk about. So Mannie Fresh wants balance and originality back. He had an interview where he sat down with Ebony magazine. Mm-hmm. They asked him a couple questions about rap and hip hop in the future and what he would like to see. So let's watch the video, and I got a couple questions that we can discuss.
Just think that we got to get back to taking chances in rap. And what I mean by that, categories. We need pro-black, we need gangster, we need the shiners, we need everything. You know, in my era of rap, we had a different category all the time, and all of those songs played, you know, back to back. You know, so I just want originality and categories back in rap. That's what I would want.
Now, we've talked about in the past, we've discussed lack of balance, right? We've talked about that in hip hop or whatever. But when it comes to the resurgence of balance, like if balance were to essentially come back, does that really change things in today's climate? And if it does, or if it doesn't, why not?
Change things in what way?
Here's what I mean. So what we say is, oh man, back in the day, we talked about the 90s a couple episodes ago. We talk about, you know, the cloud that it puts over websites and all that other stuff. So if balance were to come back in today's climate, streaming, no albums, no physical copies, would it truly make a difference on a mainstream push if everything was quote unquote more balanced like it was when we were growing up?
Look, I don't know what this balanced area he's talking about, because I just remember when Cash Money broke in what it was like end of 98 going into 99 and turning the corner into the 2000s. Everything on the radio and on TV was Money, Cash, Hoes.
But he's also spoke about variety too. You see, he listed 2 or 3, 4 different things as well.
Yeah, but you know what? It was dominated by the music he made and things that were close to that. I'm just saying, like, now I would say there's more variety. There are people who like Kendrick, but they like Boss Man D-Lo. There are people who like Glorilla, but they like Doechii too. You know, I'm thinking right now might be the era of balanced. You know, if we're able to see some of these people grow and flourish and we give them a chance for real, instead of always talking about how new rap ain't shit, like we could actually see the balance that we've been talking about damn near for the last 25 years.
Good perspective.
I'm not mad at that. Jump in, Terry. What you think?
No, I mean,
because I don't think this is old man get off my lawn.
A little bit of that.
It's not
I didn't
100%.
I didn't take it that way.
It's not how JD had when he was having that conversation talking about whatever it was he was talking about. I don't think it's that far off. But I mean, I think variety is a mass in today's day and age, because you can literally put out whatever, and even if you whatever. When I say whatever, it means any artist in their basement, house, studio can load their stuff up on the net and whatever. And if it takes off, it takes off. Even if we think about the hip hop category nowadays, Tyler the Creator won an album, a Grammy for Rap Album of the Year.
He did,
which was Mysterious Music, so to speak. When you talk about the music that usually garners that attention, it doesn't necessarily fit the mode. Doechii's album won. That doesn't necessarily fit the mode.
That's true.
Killer Mike won last year.
That's
doesn't
true.
necessarily fit the mode. So it's like we're getting a variety as far as people's taste. Now, as far as the most popular music, that might be a little different story, but there is definitely a variety and a mixing pot of music that you can pick and choose from, in my personal opinion.
But like when I sent you, the whole thing about what gets played on the radio.
Yeah.
You saw Doechii.
I did.
Okay. You saw her right there with Glorilla. You know what I'm saying?
She was there.
So you get, like I said, because at one point there was definitely no variety as far as what we wanted to hear from female artists. If they weren't shaking ass, there was no shot for you as a woman, and I get it. Doechii does a little shaking of ass, but
she's the only anomaly, though.
She is. But she's the only anomaly.
But you know what? Because people aren't
on that level.
People aren't creative within these record companies. Somebody's like, well, maybe I could find someone like Doechii, and I could be at the Grammys next year. I think that's part. You need somebody to come through, and now it doesn't always work because, after Lauryn Hill broke, it was still shake ass time.
Yeah.
They didn't try to find the next, girl with dreadlocks who writes poetry and also understands melody and songwriting.
There just wasn't as many people getting record deals back then. And I think that speaks to the art. All right, so for example, you had De La Soul, NWA, Public Enemy, MC Hammer. All of these people were out at the exact same time.
Two Live Crew. All these people were on Yo MTV Raps at the same time.
Same time. And everybody's not getting record deals, so it looks like there's a big variety because these are only people that are centered around who you see. Some people only listen to music based on who they can see. They don't search for it themselves. Fast forward to another, just a few years later, a group named Diggable Planets won Rap Album of the Year. Didn't sound like anything in the landscape. Arrested Development won Rap Album of the Year at one point in time. Didn't sound like anything of the landscape. So it's like there's been this stigma that things were always different, and that kind of comes from people being older and kind of just paying attention to nostalgia. Feels like things were so different back then, when in turn, when you fast forward to now, you put it on the same metric, same scale, from popularity and different types of music that you hear is actually the same.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't. This type of conversation, I just don't understand why we care.
It's kind of nuanced.
Yeah, but I don't see why we like the whole premise of it. Like he wants balance and originality back. It never left.
No,
that's what I'm saying.
So what are we even talking about? And again, I feel like I've said this the last couple of weeks. Like, I kind of disagree with the premise. So it's hard to really comment on this hypothetical thing that I don't even think really exists in the first place.
And that's kind of the reason why I use examples of how it is back then versus now. It's pretty much the same landscape. But it's just that you only paid attention to these handful of artists that you were fed, whereas now they're kind of feeding you the same thing on the radio, so to speak.
But why do we care about the radio? Why do we care about the game that the music industry plays with artists?
You know what? I think two points. One, I think Mannie, just from the way I took it, I think he is speaking more from a mainstream angle, right? In terms of what we see, what's pushed, what we see. What do we always say? If you listen to the radio, it's going to sound like the same song for an hour, right? Maybe that's the direction that he's going in terms of, I guess, lack thereof. But to Lone's point, that's a great question when you say, why do we care? I think back then you cared because the radio was the way. It had the most reach. So we want to try to make sure we're represented, quote unquote, properly, just as hip hop, right?
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, we still talk about the radio a lot on the show and the importance of it, but generally speaking, I just don't think it holds as much importance as people think it does.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
And even chart positions, I don't think that it really matters as much. Personally, I don't think the average rap consumer cares about a chart position. I don't think the average rap consumer or even music consumer cares about what's played on the radio. I think they care about what's in their For You page. I think they care about, what they can curate themselves. Like, I just don't really think that this shit matters the way that it's kind of pushed.
No, I think you're exactly right, because I guarantee you most quote unquote black radio programmers, before he won a Grammy, had no idea about Killer Mike's music and didn't care because they were like, well, we can't do nothing with that.
Same with Doechii.
Yeah, same thing with Doechii.
Good point.
And so I think to that extent, radio is still a viable medium. It just isn't the end all be all that it was in 1999. Things as far as culture was concerned, like I said, there was the relationship between radio and records. That's not a thing anymore. It just isn't. So I think when you come from that era and you see how things are now, you have a romanticized idea of what, you lived through, if you will, when Mannie Fresh was at the top of his game and he was the man.
And I'll say one other thing about this radio type thing that artists seem to chase this golden, I need to be on radio and all this other stuff like this. One thing I never hear anybody ever talk about is how and maybe it's just because most people don't know, but if you didn't write your song, you don't get radio royalties in the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
That 100% goes to the songwriter. If Sexy Red puts an album out and is written by Bruno Mars, it doesn't matter how many plays she got. Bruno Mars gets all of the money from that, and
That's
all
a
the
fact.
writers get from that. So it's like we almost have this like weird,
Like an infatuation with
but
being
you know who also gets half of the money is the publishing company, which is owned a lot of times by these major labels that are signed. So it's antiquated. I think we need to change the narrative around
Look,
this.
man, nobody has more plaques on their wall in the last 10 years than NBA Youngboy. I don't think he's ever been played on the radio.
Didn't need it.
So, not to just kill the segment, but
No, it's fine what you said. I'm just, I think the radio thing. I was going to ask Jay because you said, I believe you mentioned that
When I was on radio in 1987.
yeah. Tell us about these old stories when I was 4.
Well played, sir. Well played. Man, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, you mentioned that radio is still viable. I kind of want to play devil's advocate. Well, how?
You know exactly how. Though.
I don't because y'all just
Because
said
people still have cars.
NBA Youngboy
people
didn't
still-
need it.
Well, he didn't need it. I mean, Nas didn't either. But I'm just saying.
All right.
What I'm saying, all right, so one of the most popular shows in the world comes on in the morning. It's called The Breakfast Club, which plays on the radio.
Most people don't probably listen to it on the radio.
Definitely watch it on YouTube.
You think so?
A lot of people on their way to work, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
might
a whole
be,
lot
but
of
he
people
probably
commuting
right on
every
that.
morning.
Like I
probably
said,
right on
people still have cars.
Yes.
And for
He
some
probably right on
people,
that.
that's where they listen to. I don't know the last time I turned on the radio in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And that used to be a thing that I did.
I don't remember the last time I put on the radio in my car.
Yeah, but I'm saying
Now, granted, I know
That's-
I'm
you're
not
an anomaly,
I'm
but-
anomaly,
yeah.
but at the same time, like I don't know, like Mike, I don't.
I don't know when the last time I listened to the radio. I'm just telling y'all.
I know, like we like to say the word anomalies here, but and
Because
I know
it's
the
true.
casual, regular person does, but everybody also has a streaming platform. Everybody pays for a streaming platform to some degree. Everybody Bluetooths into their phone.
Yep.
No,
Aux cord, however you get
I'm here with y'all, and every morning on the way to work, I listen to The Breakfast Club
Well, all right.
every day.
I ain't mad at you
and,
now.
And I don't listen to other than that. I'm probably listening to a podcast or whatever new music has came out.
But you're not
But in
listening
the
to
morning-
a podcast on the radio though.
Sure are.
No, but I am in the morning because technically, The Breakfast Club is now a podcast that broadcasts on the radio.
But it broadcasts live. You can
Yeah.
watch it live. Yeah. So that
Yeah.
makes sense for the
So I'll
Breakfast
give
Club.
Terry this because, and I didn't think about it until he said the Breakfast Club. Because I'm with you 100%. But I do hear when I watch the segments on YouTube, not the radio, people are calling in.
Yes,
Like,
for
so
sure.
people are still calling in.
For
So
sure.
I get that part, but
I'm not saying that's
I
not the
get that
case,
part.
but that's also has nothing to do with music.
it does because they have artists on this show, and in
not-
turn play their music on the show.
But it's a lot of, their show is a lot of conversation
It's just
versus,
yapping.
It
versus
is.
interviews. That's
It is,
what I'm
but,
saying.
But people are still using that platform, that being the radio, to do interviews and also drop
Create
off their
content.
single. You know what I'm
Because-
saying? And absolutely create content that they can use personally. So I understand that a lot of us don't listen to the radio, but there are certain times of the day that the radio is always going to get played, especially if you're like in an office setting. They might just play it.
Sure.
It might just be on. You might just hear it. It hasn't. I don't think it's ever going to just go away. But as far as like what Manny is talking about, I think he wants. It's a feeling of being the old man telling you to get off my lawn because things aren't the same way that it used to be. Things are never going to be the same way that it used to be. But in order for you to understand the music landscape and to know that there's still a whole lot of variety, you have to do the work yourself. Nobody's going to program what you listen to just based off the radio. You have to. Now we have our own tools in order to create our own situations, like you said, a playlist or whatever your algorithm is feeding you on said music program.
Yeah.
So if everything sounds the same to you, then however your taste is creating that situation for you. So maybe you need to get a little bit out of your comfort zone and listen to something different.
Yeah.
Look, I get more as far as like music is concerned out of the end of the Joe Budden podcast when they do their sleepers. Mm-hmm. That's how I found out about Cleo Soul. Mm-hmm. And Cleo Soul has never been played, as far as I know, on Urban AC Radio. But, you know,
she's been on there.
She's very popular.
You about to be in some documents now.
Hey, man.
She's been on there.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that because we had the party at Almost Famous this past week, and one of the DJs played Cleo Soul, and somebody in the audience was like, "What y'all know about Cleo Soul?" I'm like, "Everybody knows about Cleo Soul. This is not anything new."
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. For the people that still use, of all things, Pandora, man, Cleo Soul Radio is fire.
Oh yes, create a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be interested in a real major poll done from a vast amount of users about spanning time, about how many people use, like how many people actually utilize radio and what for what application. Like, is it the morning type thing? Because I mean, back when I had a morning job where I had to get up, sure, every once in a while I would listen to the comedians on Bob and Tom or something on my 45-minute drive in or something. But also it was at the same time to where like there was no apps to where I couldn't plug stuff in, you know, like it was either listening to a CD or just turn something on and listen to people talk. Now we just,
I plug in.
I have a hard time. Maybe it's just my gut is just telling me that it's just, and I think even the other conversation that I would actually have is has radio ever really benefited artists realistically? The answer is yes, but how long has it been since radio has actually benefited artists? I feel like that's another deep dive conversation. But,
you know, and also, you know, when you talk about the Breakfast Club, the star of that is not the music. It is the content, the conversations. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, those conversations really only happen during morning drive, and maybe there'll be interviews that happen in the afternoon drive, which happen to be the two day parts that receive the highest ad rates. Mm-hmm. So the parts where, you know, quote unquote, music is the star, which is the dumbest thing any programmer told somebody who was trying to be on the radio. Like, I remember them telling us, hey, music is the star, don't talk so much. And who's, you know, the biggest person in urban music right now is Charlemagne the God. So I think that was just remarkably bad advice from the people who were, you know, trying to bring along new radio personalities.
Yeah, they didn't know what was going on.
But, you know, that's the thing. Like, the content and the conversations, that's what has the biggest ad rates. Just playing the music doesn't mean anything, because people are like, oh, we play the hottest music. I was like, you know, I play the hottest music through my phone.
Yeah, I think people, I've talked about this. I actually made a video earlier today talking about this a little bit about like what is the role of hip hop media, you know, moving forward in general. Like, obviously hip hop media is here to talk about the music,
right,
and the culture around it, right? But hip hop media doesn't exist without the music.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But do we care more about the conversations than we do about the music?
I think
it feels like we do.
We do.
I think that
so it's this weird
and that
thing
kind of
happening.
leads to a whole different rabbit hole of conversation piece, because sometimes to save you the agony of having to listen to this bullshit, one of us might have already listened to you and told you about it.
Yeah,
so now you're not going to listen to it, or you're not going to pay attention to it based off our opinion, so to speak.
Yep.
That's a good point.
Album reviews and goes all the way back to that's a 6. Yeah.
I'll pass.
Let me go to the store and buy the 7.
Yeah.
You know,
I've done that multiple times. Somebody will say, yeah, I ran it, man. It probably had 2 or 3 on there. Thank you, sir. Yep. I'll go try to find those. I'll make a play. Like Lone said, I'll make a playlist.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever. Yeah, never mind. I was going to say, I don't think I've ever made a playlist, but I've literally been curating playlists for a decade.
You definitely make playlists.
And even before that, I'm sure you made a mix CD, which is technically a playlist.
Yeah. He used to have, Lone used to have MP3 CDs that had like 1,000 songs
some
on
MP3 CDs.
Man, look.
I've been making those since 2004.
Yeah.
He used to just ride in the car to be like track 50, track 106. Track 106.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had a CD that had every Jay-Z instrumental on it. I have no idea where that is.
That's tough.
I still have these CD in my. I found my old CD case. I have some of these MP3 CDs over there. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I have nothing to play them in, but I guess I have an old laptop with a CD.
Oh, you got a PlayStation
with no disc.
No,
never mind.
Plus, PlayStations can't play CDs. PlayStation 5s cannot play CDs.
I do have a 4, so I guess I could.
Yeah. But then you got to break out the 4.
It's but also some burnt CDs don't play in certain CD players, so I don't even know if you used
to play in all of them PlayStations though. The early PlayStation, you used to make a nice playlist and ride out because you could actually play it while you were playing the game.
Yeah, on the Xbox, you used to be able to rip the songs
through
the hard drive,
the player,
so you could make your own custom playlist when you're playing Grand Theft Auto.
Not like you needed one.
No, you didn't. But
maybe early Grand Theft Auto, maybe.
No, that's one still. I'm talking about 3 still had. But like you could there were games specifically on the back of the box that said custom soundtracks.
You're like Need for Speed.
Yeah.
I have no idea what y'all talking about.
Sorry.
Look, just because the last thing you had was the Atari 5200. Is that what you had?
Oh, now you're gonna play me with the 5200?
It's for the children.
Yeah.
2600.
He's on there with playing Galaxian.
It's for the children.
They're coming out with an Atari watch that you can play like 5 or 6 games on.
I saw that. I was
just like this almost.
Yeah, I was like,
you want to buy that?
No, there's a part of me that was like, you know what, I deserve something nice, but then I was like, I wouldn't walk around with an Atari watch.
Nah, man,
well, you crashed out for that.
That's a little too juvenile for you right now.
Yeah, it is. It's something I would be like, get your ass out of here.